They thought it was just a massive Brahman bull, injured, quiet, and oddly still. Two hikers spotted him lying by the creek, his silver-white coat soaked with blood, breathing shallow. He didn't bellow, didn't charge, just stared. When the rescue team arrived, Dr. Eleanor Westbrook leaned in to examine the bull, but what she found hidden beneath the bull's massive chest made her face go pale. "Sometimes the bravest hearts beat in the strangest chests," her grandfather used to say. Those words echoed as she checked Thunder's vitals. Internal bleeding, severe dehydration, maybe 24 hours left if they couldn't stabilize him. Sheriff Donovan delivered the ultimatum. "The owner wants his property back or put down by tomorrow morning." That's when the bull shifted slightly, revealing what he'd been protecting all along. A small boy, unconscious but alive, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. The trail was barely marked, one of those forgotten paths near the southern edge of hill country Texas, where tourists rarely ventured and only locals dared hike during the scorching summer drought. But Caleb and Abigail Turner weren't ordinary hikers. They were wildlife volunteers trained to monitor animal movements through remote camera traps and occasionally report signs of distress. They were halfway through their weekend loop when they saw him. At first they thought it was a large rock under the mesquite trees, but as they approached the dried riverbed, the figure didn't move. It was enormous, a muscled bulk with a silver-white coat streaked with red dust and dried blood. A massive Brahman bull with the distinctive hump lying on his side, one leg twitching in the dirt. Abigail instinctively grabbed Caleb's sleeve. "Don't move." But the bull didn't react. He was breathing, barely. No bellowing, no movement, just the quiet, shallow rise of his chest. "Something's wrong with him," Caleb whispered, binoculars trained on the animal. "Look at those gashes on his flank." They waited, debated in hushed tones, then slowly backed away and radioed it in. The ranger station was almost 2 hours away, with the afternoon heat intensifying and dark clouds gathering on the horizon, promising the first storm in months. They marked the location and hiked back at double pace. Dr. Eleanor Ellie Westbrook arrived with the rescue team just as the first distant rumble of thunder rolled across the hills. She had treated injured cattle before, gouges from barbed wire, broken legs, snake bites, but something about the way this bull lay made her pause. Not sprawled in pain as she'd expect, but curled, almost protective. She approached slowly, tranquilizer gun ready. "Careful," Ranger Martinez warned. "Brahman bulls can be unpredictable, even injured." The bull's eyes tracked her movements, intelligent and alert despite his obvious distress. When the tranquilizer dart struck his shoulder, he didn't charge or even flinch. He simply groaned, a sound almost human in its resignation. Then his massive head settled against the dusty ground. As the sedation took effect and the team approached with equipment, Ellie knelt to examine the bull's injuries. That's when she noticed something beneath him. Not part of the animal, but something he seemed to be shielding. "Help me lift his foreleg," she called, her voice tight with urgency. When they did, the collective gasp was audible over the rising wind. Tucked against the bull's massive chest, partially sheltered from the brutal Texas sun, was a small boy, no more than 4 years old. His skin was sunburned and dusty, clothes torn, but his chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Clutched in his arms was a stuffed dinosaur, incongruously bright against the dirt and blood. "Get the medical kit," Ellie shouted, already checking the child's pulse. "And call Sheriff Donovan. We need to find out who this kid is and how the hell he ended up here under a 2,000-pound bull." 3 months earlier, Wyatt Johnson ran his small hand along the weathered fence post, carefully balancing the carrot on his palm. At 4 years old, he was small for his age, with a mop of sandy hair that refused to stay combed, and eyes that his mother said were old as the hills. On the other side of the fence, the massive Brahman bull lowered his head, nostrils flaring as he delicately plucked the treat from the boy's outstretched hand. "That's it, Thunder," Wyatt whispered. "Gentle, just like I showed you." Thunder was the pride of Hank Miller's small ranch, nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder with a hide the color of Texas winter clouds. Most folks in Mason County gave the bull a wide berth. Brahman bulls were known for their temperament, and Thunder had earned a reputation for charging anyone who entered his pasture. Anyone except Hank Miller, and strangely enough, little Wyatt Johnson. "Wyatt!" Sarah Johnson called from their neighboring property. "How many times have I told you to stay away from that bull?" Wyatt turned toward his mother, his face falling. "He won't hurt me, Mama. He's my friend." Sarah shook her head as she approached, keeping a wary eye on the massive animal. "Honey, that's not a puppy dog. That's a 2,000-pound bull that could hurt you without even meaning to." "Thunder's different," Wyatt insisted with the unwavering certainty of a child. "He knows me." The strange friendship had begun 6 months earlier, when the Johnsons had moved to the small ranch neighboring Hank Miller's property. Travis Johnson had taken a job managing a cattle operation in town, and the family had been looking for a quiet place to raise Wyatt. The small ranch house with its weathered porch and sprawling oak tree had seemed perfect. Wyatt had discovered Thunder during his first week at the new home. While his parents unpacked, the boy had wandered to the fence line, drawn by the sight of the massive animal. Instead of running away, as his mother later said he should have, Wyatt had simply stared, fascinated. When Thunder approached the fence, Sarah had nearly fainted from fear. But the bull had merely lowered his head, sniffing curiously at the small human who showed no fear. From that day on, Wyatt had been drawn to the fence line every afternoon, often carrying carrots or apples smuggled from the kitchen. Travis had spoken with Hank about it, concerned for his son's safety. "That bull's got the devil in him," Hank had admitted, his weathered face creased with confusion. "Charged at me twice last year when I was fixing the water trough. Don't know what he sees in your boy, but I've never seen Thunder act that way with anyone." Travis had forbidden Wyatt from going near the fence, but ranch life kept both parents busy, and the boy was clever about finding moments to slip away. The truth was, Travis had worked for Hank years earlier, before Wyatt was born, and had developed a reputation for his harsh handling of the livestock. He'd been fired after an incident with a young bull, the same animal that had grown into the imposing Thunder. This was something Travis had never mentioned when they'd moved back to the area, and he'd hoped Hank wouldn't recognize him with his now neatly trimmed beard and management position. "Your daddy's going to be home soon," Sarah said, taking Wyatt's small hand. "Let's get dinner ready." As they walked back toward their house, Wyatt glanced over his shoulder. Thunder still stood at the fence, his massive head following the boy's movement. Life changed 3 weeks later. Hank Miller's wife had passed away years before, and though the old rancher kept up appearances, everyone knew he was struggling. The drought had hit his small operation hard, and the bills from his last hospital stay had piled up. When the cattle buyer from New Mexico arrived with an offer for Thunder, Hank had been in no position to refuse. Wyatt had cried for days after Thunder was loaded into the cattle trailer. He'd stood at the fence line each afternoon, waiting with carrots that wilted in the heat. "He'll be okay, honey," Sarah assured him, though her heart ached for her son's first heartbreak. "Mr. Miller said the man has a big ranch where Thunder will have lots of space." But Wyatt wasn't consoled. "He didn't want to go, Mama. He looked at me when they were taking him away. He was scared." What Sarah didn't know, what no one knew, was that Thunder had nearly broken through the trailer when he'd seen Wyatt standing by the road, tears streaming down his face. The cattle buyer, Richard Blackwood, had remarked that he'd never seen such a fuss from a bull. "Must not want to leave his home," the man had said with a laugh. "Don't worry," He'll settle down once we get him to New Mexico." Hank had simply nodded, pocketing the check that would keep his ranch afloat for another few months. But later that night, sitting alone on his porch with a glass of whiskey, he'd cried for the first time since burying his wife. He'd raised Thunder from a calf, and despite the bull's ornery temperament, there had been a bond there. And he couldn't forget how Thunder had once dragged him from a burning shed when he'd been overcome by smoke, the bull's massive bulk pushing him to safety before the roof collapsed. Just business, he'd told himself, just the way of things. A month after Thunder's departure, Wyatt stood at the fence line during a powerful thunderstorm. Rain lashed his small form as he peered through the gloom toward Hank's empty pasture. "I'll find you someday," he whispered, the words lost in the howl of the wind. "I promise." What no one could have known then was that at that very moment, Thunder was escaping from his new home in New Mexico. A gate left unlatched by a careless ranch hand had given the bull his opportunity, and unlike most cattle who would have simply wandered to greener pastures, Thunder had a destination in mind. Somehow, through some connection science couldn't explain, the bull had fixed the scent of the small boy in his memory, the smell of clean laundry and peanut butter sandwiches, of innocence and kindness. And he began to walk, following that scent across the harsh landscape of the American Southwest. It would take Thunder nearly 2 months to find his way back to Texas, navigating by instinct across miles of rangeland, avoiding roads where possible, traveling mostly at night. The journey would leave him scarred and exhausted, his massive frame lean from hardship. But with each passing day, the scent grew stronger, pulling him forward with a determination that defied explanation. And when he finally caught the familiar scent of the boy, lost, afraid, and alone in a dry creek bed after wandering too far from a family picnic, Thunder had done what no one would have expected. He had become a guardian, curling his massive body around the small child to shield him from the elements and predators, ignoring his own injuries and exhaustion to keep Wyatt safe through the night. The emergency room at Mason County Medical Center hummed with urgent activity. Dr. Caroline Fletcher worked methodically over the small boy, her practiced hands moving with precision as she inserted an IV line into his tiny arm. Severe dehydration, moderate heat exhaustion, multiple abrasions, but no signs of internal bleeding, she reported to the nurse charting beside her. "Get another bag of pediatric fluids running and let's start cooling measures." In the adjoining veterinary wing, an unusual feature of this rural hospital that served both the human and animal populations of hill country, Dr. Ellie Westbrook faced a far more challenging case. Thunder lay on a reinforced examination platform, his massive chest rising and falling with labored breaths. The team had managed to transport him using a livestock trailer and considerable ingenuity, but moving him had clearly worsened his condition. "Blood pressure's dropping," her assistant warned, checking the specialized cuff wrapped around the bull's thick leg. Ellie nodded grimly, examining the ultrasound screen. "There's fluid in the abdomen. Internal bleeding, probably from a laceration to the liver." She glanced at the clock. 6:42 p.m. "We need to stabilize him enough for surgery, but I'm not sure he's strong enough to survive it." The double doors to the veterinary wing swung open as Sheriff Donovan entered, his weathered face grave beneath his Stetson. At 58, Donovan had served Mason County for over 3 decades, and very little surprised him anymore. But today's discovery had left even him shaken. "Got an ID on the boy," he announced, approaching Ellie. "Wyatt Johnson, age 4, reported missing yesterday evening around 5 p.m. Family was having a picnic at Comanche Creek Recreation Area when he wandered off. Search teams have been looking all night." Ellie looked up from Thunder's IV line. "And the bull? Any idea how they ended up together?" "That's where it gets strange," Donovan replied, removing his hat. "The bull's registered to a Richard Blackwood, operates a breeding program over in New Mexico. Says the animal escaped nearly 2 months ago. Been missing ever since. 2 months? Ellie's brow furrowed. You're telling me this bull traveled from New Mexico to Texas? Appears so. Donovan shifted uncomfortably. Blackwood's raising hell. Says the bull is valuable breeding stock. Wants him back or put down. His lawyers already called the county commissioner. The doors swung open again, and a couple rushed in, their faces etched with desperation. The woman's eyes were red-rimmed from crying, while the man looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Where's my son?" the woman demanded, her voice breaking. "They said you found him. Where's Wyatt?" Donovan stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I'm Sheriff Donovan. Your son is being treated right through those doors. The doctor will—" But Sarah Johnson was already pushing past him, her husband Travis close behind. Donovan exchanged glances with Ellie, who nodded toward Thunder. "Better not mention the bull just yet," she murmured. "Let them focus on their boy first." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Fletcher reported that Wyatt was responding well to treatment. He was dehydrated and exhausted, but had no serious injuries. Meanwhile, Ellie and her team worked frantically to stabilize Thunder, whose condition continued to deteriorate despite their best efforts. "His system's been pushed beyond endurance," Ellie explained to her assistant. "The journey, the injuries, protecting the boy, it's all taken a toll." The phone at the nursing station rang, and moments later a nurse approached Ellie. "Dr. Westbrook, Richard Blackwood is on the line. He's demanding to speak with you about his bull." Ellie wiped her brow with her forearm, leaving a smear of blood across her forehead. "Tell him I'm in the middle of emergency treatment. I'll call him back when I can. He says if you don't euthanize the animal immediately, he'll sue the hospital and the county. Says he's giving you 24 hours to resolve the situation before his lawyers get involved." Ellie's jaw tightened. "Tell Mr. Blackwood that I make medical decisions based on my patient's condition, not threats from lawyers." As the nurse hurried away, the doors opened once more. This time, an elderly man with a military straight posture despite his years entered the treatment area. Raymond Ray Jenkins had served as a veterinarian in the Army before returning to Mason County to establish the region's first large animal rescue. Now, in his late 70s, he still consulted on difficult cases. "Heard you've got yourself a situation, Doctor." "Westbrook," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. "Thought you might want another set of eyes." Ellie had never been so relieved to see anyone. "Ray, thank God. We've got a Brahman bull with severe internal injuries, possible liver laceration, and he's not responding to treatment like he should." Ray moved to Thunder's side, his experienced hands running along the bull's flank. "Magnificent animal," he murmured. "Must be close to 2,000 pounds when healthy." He examined the ultrasound images, then checked Thunder's eyes and gums. "You're right about the internal bleeding. But there's something else going on here. This bull's been on a mission." "What do you mean?" "Look at his hooves." Ray pointed to Thunder's feet. "Worn down, cracked in places. This bull's traveled hundreds of miles and recently, and these injuries on his flank, defensive wounds." "He fought something off, probably a mountain lion, judging by the spacing of the gashes." The treatment room door opened and Travis Johnson appeared, his face pale. "Doctor, my wife is with our son, but the nurse said, she said you found him with a bull?" Ellie nodded, gesturing to Thunder. "Your son was being protected by this animal when we found him." The bull had positioned himself around Wyatt, shielding him. Travis approached slowly, his expression a mix of disbelief and something else. Was it recognition? That's impossible. Bulls don't protect people. They're dangerous, unpredictable. "Normally, I'd agree with you," Ray interjected. "But I've worked with animals long enough to know there are exceptions to every rule. This bull traveled a long way and put himself at considerable risk to protect your boy." Travis stared at Thunder, who lay still under the bright lights, tubes and monitors attached to his massive frame. "I don't understand. Why would he—" He was interrupted by the sound of the doors swinging open again. A nurse appeared, her expression urgent. "Dr. Westbrook, the boy is awake. He's asking about something called thunder. Says he needs to see him right away." A strange expression crossed Travis's face, a flicker of recognition, followed by what looked like guilt. He stepped closer to the bull, examining the distinctive star-shaped white patch on Thunder's left ear. "Dear God," he whispered, "it can't be." "You know this bull?" Ellie asked sharply. Before Travis could answer, the hospital administrator appeared at the door, his face grave. "Dr. Westbrook, there's a situation developing. Richard Blackwood has arrived with documentation proving ownership of the bull. He's demanding immediate access and is threatening legal action if we refuse." Ellie glanced at the clock. 7:38 p.m. Less than an hour since they'd begun treatment, and already the situation was spiraling out of control. Outside, she could hear the first heavy drops of rain hitting the windows as the promised storm finally arrived. "Tell him he can wait," she said firmly. "I have a patient to stabilize." But as she turned back to Thunder, the monitors began to alarm. The bull's blood pressure was dropping rapidly, his oxygen levels plummeting. "He's crashing," her assistant called out. As Ellie rushed to administer emergency medications, she was acutely aware of the ticking clock. They had perhaps hours, not days, to unravel the mystery of Thunder and Wyatt before decisions would be forced upon them. And somewhere in the hospital, a little boy was asking for the massive animal that had, against all logic and instinct, become his unlikely guardian. Outside, the storm intensified, thunder rolling across the Texas hills, as if nature itself was responding to the drama unfolding within the hospital walls. The first 24 hours would be critical, not just for Thunder's survival, but for understanding the extraordinary bond that had brought bull and boy together across hundreds of miles of wilderness. Thunder stabilized just after 9 p.m., though Ellie warned the gathered staff that his condition remained critical. The massive bull lay quietly on the reinforced examination platform, his breathing shallow but regular, the monitors beeping in a steady rhythm that belied the gravity of his injuries. "We've stopped the internal bleeding for now," she explained to Ray Jenkins, who had remained by her side throughout the crisis. "But his liver is severely damaged and there's significant trauma to his right kidney. Even if he survives the night, his long-term prognosis is—" She trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. Ray nodded, his weathered hand resting lightly on Thunder's shoulder. "Animals surprise us sometimes, especially when they have something to live for." In the waiting room, Travis Johnson sat with his head in his hands while Sarah paced nervously outside Wyatt's treatment room. The doctors had assured them their son would make a full recovery, but hospital protocol required observation overnight due to his dehydration and exposure. "Mr. Johnson?" Sheriff Donovan's voice broke through Travis's thoughts. "There's someone here who'd like to speak with you." Travis looked up to see an older man with stooped shoulders and a face lined by years under the Texas sun. Despite the passage of time, he recognized him immediately. "Hank," Travis said, rising to his feet. "I didn't expect—" Hank Miller removed his worn Stetson, turning it nervously in his hands. "Sheriff called me. Said they found Thunder with your boy." His voice was gruff with emotion. "Wanted to see for myself." Travis nodded, unable to meet the older man's eyes. "They won't let us see Wyatt yet. Doctor's still with him." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder as the storm intensified outside. Finally, Hank spoke. "Never should have sold him," he said quietly. "That bull was the finest animal I ever raised. But after Martha passed, the medical bills? Well, you know how it goes." Travis nodded, guilt washing over him. He and Hank both knew there was more to the story than a financial transaction. Much more. The double doors to the treatment area swung open, and Dr. Ellie Westbrook emerged, stripping off her bloodied gloves. Her face showed the strain of the past hours, but her eyes were alert, focused. "Mr. Miller?" she asked, approaching Hank. "I'm Dr. Westbrook. I've been treating Thunder." "How is he?" Hank asked, his voice barely audible. "Stable for now, but critical," Ellie replied honestly. "He's suffered significant internal injuries, and his body shows signs of extreme exertion and malnutrition. To be blunt, it's remarkable he's alive at all." "That bull traveled over 100 miles to find your boy," Sheriff Donovan interjected, looking at Travis. "Rangers mapped it out based on sightings reported over the past 2 months. Straight line from Blackwoods Ranch in New Mexico to where your son was lost, like he was following some kind of signal." "Impossible," Travis muttered, but there was no conviction in his voice. "Might seem that way," Ray Jenkins said, joining the group. "But animals operate on senses we barely understand. Smell, for one. That bull recognized something, or someone, important enough to travel across state lines." Hank's eyes narrowed as he studied Travis. "You never told them, did you?" All eyes turned to Travis, whose face had gone pale. Sarah approached from the hallway, sensing the tension. "Told us what?" she asked, looking between her husband and Hank. Travis swallowed hard. "It's nothing. Ancient history." "Doesn't look like history to me," Hank said flatly. "That bull in there remembers." "Animals don't forget, especially how they're treated." "Would somebody please explain what's going on?" Ellie demanded, her patience wearing thin after hours of emergency treatment. Hank turned to her, his eyes never leaving Travis's face. "Your patient in there? Thunder. Travis used to work for me about 5 years back. He was my cattle manager for almost a year." "I don't understand," Sarah said, confusion evident in her voice. "Travis, you never mentioned working for Mr. Miller before." "Because he was fired," Hank continued relentlessly, "for cruelty to the livestock, specifically to a young bull calf that would grow up to be Thunder." The revelation fell like a thunderclap, silencing everyone in the waiting room. Travis seemed to shrink before their eyes, the weight of the past visibly pressing down on his shoulders. "Is this true?" Sarah whispered, staring at her husband in disbelief. Travis nodded almost imperceptibly. "I was different back then. Had a drinking problem. Bad temper." He looked up at Hank. "I've changed, Hank. Got help, got sober. That's why we moved back to the area. I wanted to make amends somehow." "And yet you never came to see me," Hank noted. "Never apologized for what you did to that animal." "What exactly did he do?" Ellie asked, her professional demeanor belied by the anger flashing in her eyes. Hank sighed heavily. "Used a cattle prod on the calf whenever he got frustrated, which was often. Broke a couple of the animal's ribs once, beating it with a fence post when it wouldn't move quick enough for him." Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Travis, how could you?" "I told you I was different then," Travis insisted, desperation in his voice. "After you left, Hank, I hit rock bottom. Spent some time in county lockup for a bar fight. That's where I met the counselor who helped me get sober. I swear to God I haven't had a drink in 4 years. Ask anyone who knows me now." "That may be," Ray interjected calmly, "but it doesn't change the fact that the bull in there, the one who traveled over 100 miles and fought off predators to protect your son, is the same animal you abused years ago." The implications of this statement hung in the air, too profound for anyone to immediately address. It was Sheriff Donovan who finally broke the silence. "So, you're telling me that this bull not only recognized the boy's scent from across state lines, but overcame what should have been a natural fear or hatred of humans, specifically the Johnson family, to protect him. Not humans, Ray corrected. Just Travis. From what I understand, Thunder had formed a bond with the boy, Wyatt, unusual but not unheard of in animals with high intelligence. Which makes what he did even more remarkable, Ellie added. He distinguished between father and son, recognized that Wyatt wasn't responsible for his past trauma. The hospital administrator approached the group, his expression troubled. Dr. Westbrook, Richard Blackwood is becoming increasingly agitated. He's demanding to see the bull immediately and is threatening to call the state veterinary board if we continue to deny him access to his property. Ellie's jaw tightened. Thunder is my patient, not property. His condition is critical, and I won't have him disturbed. Unfortunately, the administrator continued, Mr. Blackwood has documentation proving ownership, and our legal team advises that we have limited grounds to refuse him at least visual confirmation of the animal's condition. Tell him he can see Thunder through the observation window but not enter the treatment area, Ellie conceded reluctantly, and make it clear that any decisions regarding treatment remain with the medical team. As the administrator hurried away, Ellie turned back to the group. Thunder's injuries are worse than I initially thought. Even with aggressive treatment, he may have only 24 to 36 hours. She looked directly at Travis, which means we have very little time to sort out this situation. Travis stood, his face ashen. I need to see him. The bull? Ray asked, surprised. Yes, I don't know. I need to see him. Ellie hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. But he's heavily sedated and extremely weak. Any stress could worsen his condition. As they moved toward the treatment area, a commotion from the pediatric wing drew their attention. A nurse hurried toward them, her expression concerned. Mrs. Johnson, Wyatt is becoming agitated. He keeps asking for Thunder and trying to get out of bed. Dr. Fletcher is concerned he'll pull out his IV if he isn't calmed soon. Sarah looked torn, glancing between her husband and the corridor leading to her son's room. Go, Travis said quietly. Wyatt needs you. I'll deal with this. As Sarah hurried away, the group continued to the veterinary wing. Through the observation window, they could see Thunder lying motionless on the reinforced platform, tubes and monitors connected to his massive frame. Despite his weakened condition, there was a dignity to the great animal that commanded respect. A well-dressed man in his 50s stood at the window, his face flushed with anger as he argued with a hospital security guard. When he saw the approaching group, he turned, eyes locking onto Hank Miller. Well, if it isn't the man who sold me a runner, Richard Blackwood said coldly. Do you have any idea what that animal has cost me? 2 months of searching, lost breeding opportunities, damage to fences, not to mention the considerable sum I paid you for an animal that apparently had no intention of staying put. Richard, Hank acknowledged with a curt nod. Circumstances have changed. Indeed they have, Blackwood agreed. Which is why I'll be taking my bull back to New Mexico today, or, given his condition, having him humanely destroyed and filing an insurance claim. You can't move him, Ellie interjected firmly. His condition is too unstable for transport. Then euthanasia is the humane option, Blackwood countered. I won't pay for extensive treatment for an animal that may never recover fully. Travis stepped forward, surprising everyone. What if someone else covered the medical costs? What if I bought him from you? Blackwood laughed dismissively. That bull cost me $30,000, Mr. Johnson, plus the expenses I've incurred since his escape. Are you prepared to cover that? Travis swallowed hard. We have savings, and our land is paid for. We could. Don't be ridiculous, Blackwood interrupted. Even if you could afford it, why would you want a bull with this history? Especially given your personal connection to the animal. The implication that he knew about Travis's past caused Travis to flinch visibly. I think, Ray Jenkins said, stepping forward, What we're all dancing around here is that this bull has demonstrated extraordinary behavior that transcends normal animal instinct. He traveled over 100 miles, crossing state lines, to find and protect a child he'd formed a bond with. That's not just unusual, it's unprecedented, which makes him even more valuable as breeding stock, Blackwood noted coldly. If such traits could be passed on, that's not the point, Ellie interrupted. The point is that there's a 4-year-old boy in this hospital who's alive because of Thunder. A boy who's now asking for the bull by name. Doesn't that count for something? Before Blackwood could respond, one of the monitors connected to Thunder began to alarm. Ellie rushed into the treatment area, followed by her team. Through the window, the others watched as she worked frantically over the massive animal, administering medications and checking vital signs. After several tense minutes, the alarm subsided and Ellie returned to the observation area, her expression grave. "His condition is deteriorating," she reported. "The internal bleeding has resumed and his kidney function is declining. I've stabilized him for now, but—" She trailed off, then looked directly at Blackwood. "Mr. Blackwood, I respect your legal right to make decisions about Thunder's care, but I'm asking you, as a veterinarian and as a human being, to give us 24 hours to explore all options before making any irreversible decisions." Blackwood's jaw tightened, but something in Ellie's plea seemed to reach him. After a long moment, he nodded curtly. 24 hours, he agreed. "But I want updates on his condition every 4 hours, and if he starts suffering unnecessarily, we end it immediately." As Blackwood walked away, accompanied by the hospital administrator, the remaining group turned back to the window, watching Thunder's labored breathing. 24 hours, Ray murmured. "Not much time to save a life. Or to right a wrong," Travis added quietly, staring at the bull that had saved his son, despite every reason to let him perish. Outside, the storm raged on, lightning illuminating the Texas landscape in brief, brilliant flashes. The clock was ticking, not just for Thunder's survival, but for a chance at redemption that none of them had seen coming. "Thunder!" Wyatt whispered, his small voice barely audible over the beeping monitors. His eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on his mother's worried face hovering above him. "Where's Thunder?" Sarah Johnson gently stroked her son's hair, careful to avoid the bandage on his forehead. "You're in the hospital, sweetie. You got lost, remember? The doctors are taking good care of you." Wyatt's face crumpled with urgency. "But Thunder found me. He was hurt. Where is he?" Dr. Caroline Fletcher exchanged glances with the pediatric nurse before addressing Wyatt directly. "Wyatt, can you tell us who Thunder is?" "He's my friend," the boy said with the absolute certainty only a child could possess. "The big bull with the star on his ear. He kept me safe from the mountain lions." Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she continued to stroke her son's hair. The doctor had warned her that Wyatt might be confused, that traumatic experiences sometimes caused children to create comforting narratives, but there was no confusion in her son's eyes, only concern. "Thunder is being taken care of by another doctor," Sarah said carefully. "Dr. Westbrook is helping him get better." Wyatt struggled to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at his IV line. "I need to see him. He'll be scared without me." "Honey, you need to rest," Sarah insisted gently, easing him back against the pillows. "You've been through a lot." But Wyatt's expression grew more determined. "He came to find me, Mama. He walked a really long way. I have to see him." Dr. Fletcher made a notation on Wyatt's chart. "Mrs. Johnson, could I speak with you outside for a moment?" In the hallway, the doctor's expression was troubled. "Your son's attachment to this bull is quite strong." "Normally, I'd say it's just a child's imagination helping him process trauma, but given the circumstances—" "You mean the fact that he was actually found with a bull?" Sarah finished, her voice tight with barely contained emotion. "A bull that apparently traveled over 100 miles to find him? It's certainly unusual, Dr. Fletcher acknowledged. The child psychology consultant should be here within the hour. But in the meantime, it might help Wyatt to know that the bull is being cared for. It could reduce his anxiety. Sarah nodded absently, her mind elsewhere. Dr. Fletcher, my husband, did he tell you anything about his history with Thunder? No, but the hospital grapevine works quickly, the doctor replied. I heard there was some connection. Is it something I should know as Wyatt's physician? Sarah hesitated, then shook her head. It's complicated. He's not the same man he was 5 years ago. He's worked hard to change. People do change, Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Fletcher said kindly. But right now our focus needs to be on Wyatt's recovery, both physical and emotional. As if to emphasize the point, a crash sounded from Wyatt's room, followed by the blare of an alarm. They rushed back in to find Wyatt halfway out of bed, his IV stand toppled beside him. I have to see Thunder, he cried, tears streaming down his face. He needs me. 5 years earlier, Travis Johnson had stood in the pouring rain, anger burning through his veins alongside the whiskey he'd consumed at Harley's bar. The young bull calf had broken through the fence again, the 3rd time that month, and Travis's patience had snapped. "Goddamn worthless animal," he'd muttered, grabbing a cattle prod from the shed. The calf, who would one day grow into the massive bull called Thunder, had huddled against the back of the holding pen, sensing the danger in Travis's unsteady gait and slurred words. When Travis jabbed the prod forward, the young bull had bellowed in pain and fear. "Travis!" Hank Miller's voice had cut through the downpour. "What the hell are you doing?" "Teaching this stupid animal a lesson," Travis had snarled, raising the prod again. Hank had grabbed his arm, wrestling the prod away. "You're drunk. Go home before you do something you can't take back." "Don't tell me how to do my job," Travis had shouted, pushing Hank away. "These animals only understand one thing." "No, you're the one who doesn't understand," Hank had responded, his voice cold with fury. "You're fired, Travis. Get off my property, now." The memory faded as Travis stood at the observation window, watching Thunder's labored breathing. The rain lashing against the windows mirrored that night years ago, but everything else had changed. Travis had hit rock bottom after losing that job, arrested for drunk driving, spending time in county lockup, finally facing the demons that had driven him to abuse both alcohol and animals. Meeting Sarah during his recovery had been his salvation. Her quiet strength and unwavering support had helped him rebuild his life. When Wyatt was born, Travis had vowed to be a father his son could respect. He'd remained sober, worked hard, earned a management position that didn't require direct handling of livestock. But he'd never made amends to the animals he'd mistreated, never apologized to Hank, never faced that part of his past. Until now. "Remarkable animal," Ray Jenkins said, breaking into Travis's thoughts. The elderly veterinarian stood beside him at the window, his weathered face thoughtful. "I've worked with livestock for over 50 years, and I've never seen anything quite like this." "Like what?" Travis asked quietly. "An animal that overcomes its instincts so completely," Ray explained. "Bulls don't protect humans, especially humans connected to someone who caused them pain. Yet Thunder not only protected your son, he sought him out across hundreds of miles." Travis swallowed hard. "Why would he do that?" "The obvious answer would be that he formed a bond with your boy that was stronger than his fear or anger," Ray said. "But I think it's more than that. I think this bull made a choice, a conscious decision to rise above his past experiences." "You're talking about him like he's human," Travis protested weakly. Ray shrugged. "Humans don't have a monopoly on emotional intelligence, son, or on forgiveness." The word hit Travis like a physical blow. Forgiveness. Was that what Thunder had demonstrated? Not just toward Wyatt, but in some larger sense? Before he could pursue the thought, Dr. Westbrook emerged from Thunder's treatment room, her scrubs spotted with blood. "We've managed to control the bleeding again," she reported, fatigue evident in her voice. "But his kidneys are failing. Without dialysis, he won't last 12 hours. "Can you do that for a bull?" Travis asked, surprised. "It's rarely done outside specialized large animal hospitals," Ellie admitted. "But we have the equipment. The problem is the strain on his system. In his weakened state, the procedure itself could kill him." "So it's a gamble," Ray concluded. "A significant one," Ellie agreed, "and one I can't make without the owner's consent." Travis turned back to the window, watching Thunder's massive chest rise and fall. "I'll talk to Blackwood. Maybe if I explain about Wyatt." "Travis?" Sarah's voice called from down the corridor. She hurried toward them, her face strained. "Wyatt's having a meltdown. He's demanding to see Thunder. He tried to climb out of bed, pulled out his IV. They've had to sedate him." "Jesus," Travis muttered. "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes. But Dr. Fletcher is concerned about his emotional state. She says his attachment to Thunder is unusually strong, and separating them might be causing additional trauma." "Separating them might be the least of our problems," Ellie said grimly. "At the rate Thunder's condition is deteriorating, we're facing some difficult decisions very soon." Sarah looked through the observation window, seeing Thunder for the first time. Despite his massive size, the bull appeared vulnerable, his once powerful body now dependent on machines and medications. "He really came all that way to find Wyatt?" "The evidence suggests he did," Ray confirmed. "And from what I understand, he fought off at least one mountain lion to protect your son." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Wyatt kept telling me Thunder was his friend. I thought he was just being a little boy, making up stories." She turned to Travis. "We have to help him." "I'm trying," Travis said, frustration evident in his voice. "But Blackwood owns him, and he's talking about euthanasia rather than expensive treatment." "Then buy him," Sarah insisted. "Use our savings. Take out a loan if we have to." "Blackwood wants $30,000 plus expenses," Travis explained. "We don't have that kind of money." "Actually," Hank Miller's voice interrupted as he rejoined the group. "You might not need it." He held up his cell phone. "Just got off the phone with a reporter from the Mason County Chronicle. Seems someone at the hospital tipped them off about a bull that traveled across state lines to save a child. They want the full story." "How does that help us?" Travis asked. "Because stories like this go viral," Hank explained. "A bull traversing hundreds of miles to save a boy he bonded with, that's national news. And Blackwood knows it. Right now, he's thinking like a businessman. Cost versus benefit. But once this story breaks, he'll be facing public relations considerations." "You think public pressure would change his mind?" Ellie asked skeptically. "I think a businessman like Blackwood understands the value of good publicity," Hank replied, "and the cost of being vilified as the man who killed a hero bull." As if on cue, the hospital administrator approached, looking harried. "Dr. Westbrook, there are 2 news vans in the parking lot, and we've received calls from 3 national networks. Apparently word has gotten out about your patient." Ellie sighed. "Wonderful. Just what we need. Media circus on top of a medical crisis." "Actually," Ray interjected thoughtfully, "this might work in Thunder's favor. Blackwood won't want to be painted as the villain in this story." The administrator cleared his throat. "Speaking of Mr. Blackwood, he's on his way back to the hospital. Says he needs to discuss options regarding the bull." "I need to speak with him before anyone else does," Travis said firmly. "This is my responsibility." Sarah touched his arm. "Travis, what are you planning?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I owe it to Wyatt and to Thunder." As Travis headed toward the hospital entrance to intercept Blackwood, his mind flashed back to another storm, Another moment that had changed the course of lives. It had been nearly 2 years since Thunder was sold, and Wyatt still visited the fence line every day, his small face hopeful despite repeated disappointment. The storm that night had been particularly fierce, with lightning splitting the Texas sky and thunder that rattled the windows of their small ranch house. Travis had checked on his sleeping son before heading to bed, only to find Wyatt's room empty, the window open to the raging elements. Panic had propelled him into the storm, flashlights sweeping across the rain-soaked landscape as he called his son's name. He'd found Wyatt at Hank's property, soaked to the skin, trying to open the gate to an empty pasture. "Wyatt, what are you doing out here?" Travis had shouted over the howling wind. "Thunder is scared of storms," Wyatt had explained, teeth chattering from cold. "I need to let him in the barn." "Son, Thunder isn't here anymore. Remember? Mr. Miller sold him." Wyatt had shaken his head stubbornly. "I heard him, Daddy. He's scared." Travis had carried his son home, attributing the incident to a child's imagination and perhaps a dream. But what if it hadn't been? What if somehow, across the miles, Wyatt had sensed something about the bull that adults couldn't comprehend? The thought was still with him as he spotted Richard Blackwood striding through the hospital's main entrance, his expensive raincoat shedding water onto the polished floor. "Mr. Blackwood," Travis called, intercepting him. "I need to speak with you about Thunder." Blackwood regarded him coldly. "I believe we've already established there's nothing to discuss, Mr. Johnson. Either the animal recovers enough for transport within 24 hours, or the humane option is euthanasia." "There's another option," Travis persisted. "Let me tell you about my son and his connection to your bull. Please. 5 minutes of your time." Something in Travis's tone must have reached Blackwood, for after a moment's hesitation, he nodded curtly. 5 minutes, in the cafeteria. I could use a coffee after that drive." As they walked, Travis gathered his thoughts, knowing these might be the most important 5 minutes of his life. And Thunder's. Outside, the storm continued to rage, as if nature itself was holding its breath, waiting for the outcome of this unlikely encounter between a reformed animal abuser and a businessman who saw livestock merely as assets. In the pediatric wing, Wyatt Johnson slept fitfully, sedatives dulling but not eliminating the urgency he felt. In his dreams, he was back in the dry creek bed, lost and frightened, when a massive silver shape emerged from the gathering darkness, not a threat, but salvation. Thunder, coming to find him when all hope seemed lost. And in the veterinary treatment room, the bull who had defied instinct and geography to save a child fought his own battle against failing organs and accumulating toxins. His mighty heart continued to beat, each pulse a testament to a will that transcended ordinary animal behavior. The clock on the wall read 11:42 p.m. The 24-hour deadline was approaching its halfway point, and the night still held many uncertainties. For Wyatt and Thunder, for Travis and his chance at redemption, for everyone touched by this extraordinary story of unlikely connection, the hours ahead would determine far more than just survival. The hospital cafeteria was nearly empty at midnight, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across plastic tables. Travis sat across from Richard Blackwood, his hands wrapped around a cooling cup of coffee, searching for words that might penetrate the businessman's pragmatic exterior. "My son believes that bull saved his life," Travis began, his voice low but steady. "And every medical professional and ranger involved agrees with him." Blackwood's expression remained impassive. "I don't dispute the animal protected your son, Mr. Johnson. That's precisely what makes him valuable breeding stock. But sentiment doesn't change the economic reality. His treatment will be expensive, with no guarantee of recovery." "This isn't about economics," Travis insisted. "It's about something deeper." "Deeper?" Blackwood raised an eyebrow. "I've been in the cattle business for 30 years, Mr. Johnson." "Bulls are impressive animals, but they don't possess the emotional complexity you're suggesting." Travis leaned forward. "Then how do you explain Thunder traveling over 100 miles, crossing state lines to find my son? Territorial behavior, random wandering, perhaps even the scent of familiar humans," Blackwood dismissed. "Extraordinary, yes, but explicable. And the fact that he fought off a mountain lion to protect Wyatt, that he positioned himself around my son to shield him through the night despite his own injuries?" For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Blackwood's face. "As I said, extraordinary." Travis took a deep breath, knowing he was about to expose his deepest shame to a stranger. "There's something you should know, something that makes what Thunder did even more remarkable." He met Blackwood's eyes directly. "5 years ago, I worked for Hank Miller. I was Thunder's primary handler when he was just a calf. And I abused him." Blackwood's expression shifted from dismissive to attentive. "Go on." "I was an alcoholic with anger issues," Travis continued, the words painful but necessary. "I used a cattle prod on him when he didn't respond quickly enough. Beat him with a fence post once. Broke some ribs." His voice caught. "Hank fired me when he caught me drunk on the job, mistreating the animals. And he was right to do it." "So you're telling me this bull not only recognized your son's scent and sought him out, but overcame what should have been a deeply ingrained fear or hatred associated with your family?" "Yes," Travis said simply. "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Blackwood sat back, studying Travis with new interest. "That's quite a story." "It's the truth," Travis said. "And those reporters outside, they're going to love it. The reformed abuser whose son is saved by the very animal he once mistreated. The bull who overcame mistreatment to become a hero." "You can't buy publicity like that." "Or," Blackwood countered, "they could run with 'businessman euthanizes hero bull for financial reasons.' Is that your implied threat, Mr. Johnson?" Travis shook his head. "No threat, just reality. This story is going to break big, with or without my input. The question is whether you want to be the villain or the hero in it." Before Blackwood could respond, Dr. Ellie Westbrook appeared at their table, her expression grave. "Thunder's kidney function is deteriorating rapidly," she reported without preamble. "We need to start dialysis immediately if he's going to have any chance of survival." "And the cost?" Blackwood asked, businessman to the core. "Approximately $8,000, not including continued intensive care," Ellie replied. "Mr. Blackwood, I understand the financial considerations, but this is an extraordinary case. That bull saved a child's life at great personal cost. Doesn't that merit extraordinary measures?" Blackwood checked his watch, his face unreadable. "The procedure? What are his chances with it?" "Maybe 50-50, Ellie admitted. "Without it, 0. A tense silence fell over the table as Blackwood considered, interrupted only by the distant rumble of thunder as the storm continued to rage outside. Finally, he looked up. "Proceed with the dialysis," he said. "But I want hourly updates, and if his condition worsens significantly, we revisit this decision." Ellie nodded briskly. "Thank you. I'll send updates to your phone." As she hurried back toward the treatment area, Blackwood turned to Travis. "This doesn't change the ownership situation, Mr. Johnson. I'm authorizing treatment, not surrendering property." "I understand," Travis said, relief washing through him. "But it's a start." In the pediatric wing, Wyatt Johnson awoke from sedation to find his room dimly lit and his mother dozing in a chair beside his bed. For a moment he lay still, piecing together fragments of memory, the hiking trip, becoming separated from his parents, the growing fear as darkness fell, and then, "Thunder," he whispered. Sarah stirred, instantly alert. "Wyatt, how are you feeling, sweetie?" "Where's Thunder?" Wyatt asked immediately. "Is he okay?" Sarah moved to sit on the edge of the bed. "The doctors are helping him, honey. He was hurt pretty badly." Wyatt's eyes filled with tears. "He found me, Mama. When I was lost and scared, he came and laid down next to me. He kept me warm when it got cold." "I know, baby," Sarah said softly, stroking his hair. "Everyone says he's a very special bull." "He's my friend," Wyatt insisted. "He remembered me from Mr. Miller's farm. I used to give him carrots through the fence, and I'd talk to him about school and stuff." His small face crumpled with worry. "He needs me, Mama. When he's scared, I sing to him and he feels better." Sarah looked at her son with wonder. And the doctors had warned that Wyatt might confuse reality with imagination after his ordeal, but the details he provided were too specific, too consistent with the evidence they'd found. "You sing to him?" she asked gently. Wyatt nodded earnestly. "The song about the stars that Grandpa taught me. Thunder likes it. His breathing gets all slow and calm when I sing it." Dr. Fletcher entered the room, clipboard in hand. "Well, look who's awake. How are you feeling, Wyatt?" "I need to see Thunder," Wyatt replied immediately. "He's hurt and scared." Dr. Fletcher exchanged glances with Sarah. "Wyatt, Thunder is getting special treatment in another part of the hospital. The veterinarians are doing everything they can to help him." "But he needs me," Wyatt insisted, his voice rising with distress. "He came all the way to find me. I can't leave him alone now." The doctor made a notation on her clipboard. "Wyatt, can you tell me more about your relationship with Thunder?" "When did you first meet him?" "At Mr. Miller's farm," Wyatt explained, his tone suggesting this should be obvious. "He was all by himself in the field and he looked sad. I started bringing him carrots and talking to him. He likes when I scratch behind his ears. Not everyone knows that." "And what happened when you got lost yesterday?" Dr. Fletcher prompted. "I was looking for pretty rocks for my collection," Wyatt explained. "Then I couldn't find the path back to Mommy and Daddy. I tried to follow the creek, but it got dark and I was scared." His voice trembled at the memory. "Then I heard something big coming. I thought it was a bear, but it was Thunder. He sniffed me all over. Then he laid down next to me like this." Wyatt demonstrated by curling on his side. "He kept me warm all night. When the mountain lion came, Thunder got up and made a really loud noise, and the lion ran away." Dr. Fletcher's professional demeanor softened slightly. "That sounds very scary." "You must have been relieved when Thunder found you." "I knew he would," Wyatt said with the absolute conviction of childhood. "I always told him if he ever got lost, I'd find him. So when I got lost, I knew he'd find me too." The simplicity and certainty of this statement left both adults momentarily speechless. It was Sarah who finally broke the silence. "Dr. Fletcher, is there any way Wyatt could see Thunder? Even just for a few minutes? I'm concerned his anxiety will impede his recovery." The doctor hesitated. "It's highly irregular. The veterinary wing isn't set up for pediatric visitors, and from what I understand, Thunder's condition is critical." "Please," Wyatt begged, his eyes wide and pleading. "I promised I wouldn't leave him." Dr. Fletcher's professional reserve cracked slightly. "Let me consult with Dr. Westbrook. If, and this is a very big if, she believes it won't negatively impact Thunder's treatment, we might be able to arrange a brief visit. But I need you to understand, Wyatt, that Thunder is very sick. The doctors aren't sure if he's going to get better." Wyatt's face grew solemn. "He will. He's the strongest, bravest bull in the whole world." In the veterinary treatment area, Dr. Ellie Westbrook monitored Thunder's vital signs as the dialysis machine hummed steadily, filtering toxins from the massive bull's bloodstream. The procedure was risky under the best circumstances. With a patient as compromised as Thunder, it was a desperate gamble. "Pressure's holding," her assistant reported, checking the monitors, "but his temperature's elevated, 103.2. "Infection's taking hold," Ellie murmured, adjusting the antibiotic drip. "Push another 500 cc of fluids and increase the cooling measures." Ray Jenkins watched from the corner, his weathered face grave. In his 50 years of veterinary practice, he'd seen animals perform remarkable feats, demonstrate unexpected intelligence, even form unlikely bonds. But Thunder's journey, the distance traveled, the obstacles overcome, the protection offered to a human child despite past abuse, transcended anything in his experience. "His will to live is extraordinary," Ray observed quietly. "Question is, what's he living for?" Ellie glanced up. The boy, obviously. Their connection seems to be driving him. "Then perhaps that connection could help him now," Ray suggested. "The child is asking for him, isn't he?" "Dr. Fletcher mentioned it," Ellie confirmed. "But bringing a 4-year-old into a critical care setting, I don't know, Ray. The risk of infection, the potential trauma if Thunder doesn't make it, against the potential benefit of giving both patients what they clearly need," Ray countered. "Sometimes medicine needs to address the spirit as well as the body." Before Ellie could respond, the treatment room door opened, and Travis Johnson entered, his face drawn with fatigue and worry. "How is he?" Travis asked, approaching Thunder's side with hesitation. "Fighting," Ellie replied honestly. "The dialysis is helping clear the toxins, but the infection is gaining ground. The next few hours will be critical." Travis nodded, then surprised both veterinarians by placing his hand gently on Thunder's shoulder. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said quietly to the sedated bull, "or if you'd even care what I have to say. But I'm sorry. For everything I did to you years ago, there's no excuse for it." The monitor tracking Thunder's heart rate showed a slight fluctuation, though whether from Travis's touch or his words was impossible to determine. "My son thinks the world of you," Travis continued, his voice thick with emotion. "He always has, and you saved him when I couldn't. I'll never be able to repay that debt." Ellie and Ray exchanged glances, silently agreeing to step back, giving Travis a moment of privacy with the animal he had once abused and that had, against all odds, saved his son. "Wyatt's asking for you," Travis said softly. "He's worried sick, fighting the doctors because he wants to make sure you're okay." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "He's stubborn that way. Gets it from his mother." As if in response, Thunder's massive chest rose in a deeper breath, and the heart monitor showed another slight change in rhythm. "Dr. Westbrook," Travis said, turning to Ellie. "I know it's not standard procedure, but is there any way Wyatt could see Thunder? Even just for a few minutes? I think they both need it." Ellie hesitated, weighing medical protocols against the extraordinary circumstances. "Thunder's condition is extremely fragile. Any additional stress could—" "I don't think Wyatt would stress him," Travis interrupted. "Just the opposite. My son has a way with him that no one else does." "It's true," Ray added. "We've all seen the evidence of their bond. Who's to say that bond couldn't be beneficial now, when Thunder is fighting for his life?" Ellie's medical training warred with her intuition. Standard protocol would never allow a child into a critical care setting with a wild animal. But nothing about this situation was standard. "Let me talk to Dr. Fletcher," she finally said. "If she believes Wyatt is stable enough for a brief visit, and if we take all possible precautions, maybe we can arrange something." The relief on Travis's face was palpable. "Thank you." As Ellie left to consult with the pediatrician, Travis remained by Thunder's side, one hand resting lightly on the bull's broad shoulder. The massive animal's breathing had become slightly more regular, as if he somehow sensed that a reunion with Wyatt might be forthcoming. "Hang in there, big guy," Travis murmured. "That boy of mine is something special. Always has been. Saw something in you that nobody else did." He swallowed hard. "Something I was too blind and angry to see." Outside, the storm that had been raging all night finally began to subside, the thunder growing more distant, the intervals between lightning flashes lengthening. Dawn was still hours away, But the worst of the tempest had passed, leaving behind a gentler rain that pattered against the windows with almost musical rhythm. Inside the hospital, two patients, one human, one bovine, continued their separate battles for recovery, each drawing strength from a connection that defied explanation. And for Travis Johnson, a man who had once inflicted pain out of his own suffering, the opportunity for redemption hung in the balance, as fragile and precious as the heartbeats of the bull that had saved his son. The arrangements took nearly an hour of careful negotiation between the medical teams. Dr. Fletcher initially resisted, citing hospital protocols and potential psychological trauma for Wyatt if Thunder's condition worsened during the visit. Dr. Westbrook countered with research on animal-assisted therapy and the documented benefits of emotional connection during recovery. In the end, it was Ray Jenkins who tipped the scales. "In 50 years of veterinary practice," he told the assembled medical staff, "I've learned that sometimes the best medicine isn't in our textbooks. These two found each other across hundreds of miles. Seems to me they deserve a chance to heal together." Shortly after 2 a.m., Wyatt Johnson was wheeled into the veterinary treatment area in a hospital bed, his IV pole beside him, his mother walking alongside. The room had been carefully prepared, non-essential equipment moved aside, a clear path for emergency access, additional staff on standby. Thunder remained on his reinforced platform, the dialysis machine humming steadily beside him. "Thunder!" Wyatt called out, his small voice cracking with emotion as he caught sight of the massive bull. To everyone's astonishment, Thunder's ears twitched at the sound. His great head, which had lain motionless for hours, shifted slightly toward the source of the beloved voice. "Can I get closer?" Wyatt asked, already trying to climb down from the bed. "Careful with your IV, sweetie," Sarah cautioned, helping him into a wheelchair that Dr. Fletcher had positioned beside the bed. As they wheeled Wyatt to within a few feet of Thunder, the atmosphere in the room grew thick with anticipation. Medical professionals who had seen every manner of injury and illness found themselves holding their breath, witnessing something that transcended their training. "Hey, Thunder," Wyatt said softly, reaching out a small hand. "I told them you needed me." Dr. Westbrook started to caution against touching, then stopped herself. The moment felt too sacred to interrupt with medical protocols. Thunder's great eye, half-lidded with sedation and exhaustion, fixed on the boy. A low rumble, too soft to be a moo but clearly audible, emanated from the bull's chest. "He's saying hello," Wyatt explained to the room of adults, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "He's hurting really bad, but he's happy to see me." Travis, who had been standing back, approached slowly to stand beside his wife. "How do you know he's hurting, son?" "His breathing's all tight," Wyatt explained matter-of-factly. "And his eyes are pinched at the corners. That's how you can tell." The adults exchanged glances, struck by the child's observation. Wyatt reached out further, and before anyone could stop him, placed his small hand on Thunder's massive forehead, just between his eyes. "It's okay," he whispered. "You found me, just like I knew you would. And now I'm going to help you get better." To everyone's amazement, Thunder's vital signs displayed on the monitors surrounding him began to stabilize. His heart rate, which had been erratic, settled into a more regular rhythm. His oxygen levels, which had been concerning, improved slightly. "Well, I'll be damned," Ray murmured. "Look at those readings." Dr. Westbrook checked the monitors, her scientific mind searching for a medical explanation. "It could be coincidental. The dialysis might be—" "It's not the dialysis," Ray interrupted gently. "It's the boy." Wyatt, oblivious to the stir he was causing among the medical staff, continued to speak softly to Thunder. "Remember when Mr. Miller's barn roof started to fall in that big storm? You were really scared, but I let you out so you wouldn't get hurt. You didn't want to leave me even then." Sarah looked at Travis in confusion. What is he talking about? Travis's face had gone pale. The night of the big storm, 2 years ago, when Wyatt disappeared from his room, I found him at Hank's property, trying to open the pasture gate. He kept saying Thunder was scared of the storm and needed to be let into the barn. But Thunder was already gone by then, Sarah said. Sold to New Mexico. I know, Travis replied, his voice barely above a whisper. That's why I thought he was just confused or dreaming, but what if somehow he knew? Their conversation was interrupted as Wyatt began to sing, his childish voice sweet and clear in the hushed treatment room. It was an old lullaby, one that his grandfather had taught him, a gentle song about stars keeping watch through the night. Thunder's breathing deepened, growing more regular with each note. His massive body, which had been tense with pain, seemed to relax incrementally. His pain indicators are decreasing, Dr. Westbrook noted with astonishment, checking the monitors. And his blood pressure is normalizing. Told you, Wyatt said simply, pausing in his song. He just needed me to remind him he's not alone. For nearly 20 minutes, Wyatt sat beside Thunder, sometimes singing, sometimes simply talking in the way children do, about his day, about the rocks he'd found before getting lost, about the dinosaur book his teacher had read in class. Throughout it all, Thunder remained focused on the boy, his great eye never leaving Wyatt's face. Eventually, Dr. Fletcher approached. Wyatt, I think we need to let Thunder rest now. And you need your rest, too. For a moment, it seemed Wyatt might protest, but instead he nodded with surprising maturity. He's really tired, but he's feeling a little better now. He leaned in close to Thunder's ear. I'll come back tomorrow, okay? You just keep fighting. As Wyatt was wheeled back to his bed, Thunder made another soft sound, almost a sigh. The boy looked back, smiling. He says thank you. After Wyatt had been returned to the pediatric wing, the medical team regrouped in the treatment area, reviewing Thunder's vital signs with a mixture of scientific curiosity and wonder. His kidney function has improved by 15%, Dr. Westbrook noted, and the inflammation markers are down. It's remarkable. I've seen therapy animals help human patients, Dr. Fletcher said, but never the reverse. Never a human helping an animal heal like this. Ray Jenkins smiled. Healing goes both ways. Always has. We've just forgotten how to see it sometimes. Travis, who had remained behind while Sarah accompanied Wyatt back to his room, approached Thunder cautiously. The bull's eye tracked him, and Travis paused, uncertain. He's not as sedated as he appears, Ellie observed. His awareness is much higher than I would have expected given his condition and medications. Does he recognize me, do you think? Travis asked, hesitantly. Cattle have excellent long-term memory, Ray replied, especially for those who've treated them poorly. Travis winced at the blunt assessment but didn't deny it. I'd understand if he never forgave me. Forgiveness isn't just a human concept, Ray said. Look at what he did for your son, despite everything. Travis reached out slowly, allowing Thunder to see his hand approaching. When the bull didn't flinch or show signs of distress, he gently placed his palm on the broad white star marking on Thunder's forehead, the same spot where Wyatt had touched him. Thank you, Travis whispered, for being better than I was, for finding him when I couldn't. Thunder's eye remained fixed on Travis, neither accepting nor rejecting the tentative connection. After a moment, Travis stepped back, overcome with emotion. I should check on Wyatt, he said, his voice rough. Let me know if there's any change. As Travis left, Richard Blackwood entered, having been summoned by the nursing staff to discuss Thunder's improved condition. The businessman looked tired but composed, his earlier hostility tempered by the night's events. Dr. Westbrook, he acknowledged, I understand there's been a development. Several, actually, Ellie replied. Thunder's responding better than expected to the dialysis, and he had a remarkable reaction to a visit from Wyatt Johnson. "The boy," Blackwood said thoughtfully. "Yes, I watched from the observation window. Quite extraordinary. His condition has stabilized enough that I believe he has a fighting chance," Ellie continued. "But he'll need specialized care for several weeks, possibly months." "At considerable expense," Blackwood noted, though without his earlier coldness. "Mr. Blackwood," Ray interjected, "I think we need to address the elephant, or rather the bull, in the room. This animal has demonstrated exceptional qualities that go beyond economic value. His connection with the Johnson boy, his journey across state lines, his protective behavior, these are not typical bovine traits." "I'm aware," Blackwood replied, "which is precisely why he's valuable to my breeding program." "But separating him from Wyatt could reverse his progress," Ellie argued. "We've just witnessed how their connection positively affects his health." Blackwood ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of uncharacteristic uncertainty. "What exactly are you suggesting, Dr. Westbrook?" "I'm suggesting that Thunder's welfare, and by extension the welfare of Wyatt Johnson, might be best served by reconsidering his future." Before Blackwood could respond, a commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Hank Miller burst through the doors, his weathered face alight with excitement. "You folks better come see this," he announced. "There's something you need to know." He led them to the waiting area, where a small television was tuned to an early morning news program. The anchor was speaking earnestly as footage played of the hospital exterior, where sources say the bull traveled over 100 miles to find and protect 4-year-old Wyatt Johnson, who had become separated from his family during a hiking trip. The child was found unharmed, sheltered beneath the bull's body. The screen cut to a reporter standing outside the hospital in the pre-dawn drizzle. "Lisa, hospital officials haven't released an official statement, but witnesses report that the bull, a Brahmin named Thunder, had formed a special bond with the boy during his previous life on a local ranch. In what experts are calling unprecedented behavior, the animal apparently escaped from its new owner in New Mexico and somehow tracked the child's scent across state lines." "My phone's been ringing off the hook," Hank explained. "Reporters, television producers, even a book agent. They're calling it the Miracle Bull of Mason County." Blackwood watched the broadcast, his expression calculating. As a businessman, he recognized a public relations opportunity when he saw one. But there was something else in his face as well, a softening, perhaps even a touch of wonder. "Mr. Blackwood," Ray said quietly, "sometimes the most valuable things can't be measured in dollars." The morning progressed with cautious optimism. Thunder's condition, while still serious, continued to show improvement. The dialysis was working, his kidney function slowly recovering, the infection responding to aggressive antibiotic therapy. In the pediatric wing, Wyatt, too, was making excellent progress, his vital signs strong, his spirits high now that he'd seen Thunder. Shortly before noon, Travis found Richard Blackwood in the hospital cafeteria, nursing a cup of coffee and studying something on his tablet. "Mr. Blackwood," Travis greeted him. "Do you have a minute?" "Mr. Johnson," Blackwood replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "I was just reviewing some rather interesting proposals. It seems your son's bull has become something of a celebrity." "He's not my son's bull," Travis corrected gently. "He's your property. But I'd like to change that." Blackwood raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" "I know you said 30,000 plus expenses, and I know that's more than we can afford," Travis continued, "but I'm prepared to offer you everything we have in savings, $12,000, plus a payment plan for the remainder." "That's very generous, but—" "And," Travis interrupted, "I'm prepared to sign over 10 acres of our property to extend your grazing rights if you ever expand into Texas. It's good land with year-round water access." Blackwood studied him with new interest. "You're serious." "Dead serious," Travis confirmed. "That bull saved my son's life." "But it's more than that. Thunder and Wyatt have a connection I can't explain. You saw it yourself. Separating them would be cruel to both of them." "And what about your history with the animal?" Blackwood asked. "The abuse you mentioned?" Travis flinched but held his gaze. "I can't change the past, but I can try to make amends in the present. Part of that is ensuring Thunder gets to live out his life with someone who loves him as much as Wyatt does." Blackwood was silent for a long moment, then turned his tablet around to show Travis the screen. It displayed an email from a major television network proposing an exclusive story on Thunder and Wyatt. "This came in 20 minutes ago," Blackwood explained. "They're offering a substantial fee for exclusive rights to the story. There are 3 more like it in my inbox." Travis's heart sank. "So his value has gone up." "His monetary value, yes," Blackwood agreed. "But there's another calculation to consider." He leaned forward. "Mr. Johnson, I've built my breeding operation on understanding what makes exceptional animals. Thunder's journey to find your son represents qualities I've never seen before in 30 years of breeding: intelligence, determination, emotional complexity." "So you want to breed those traits," Travis concluded. "Initially, yes, that was my thought," Blackwood admitted. "But having witnessed their interaction, I'm not convinced those traits can be bred. They might be unique to Thunder himself, a product of his specific experiences and connections." Travis waited, hardly daring to hope. "I'm prepared to make you a counteroffer," Blackwood continued. "I will transfer ownership of Thunder to your family for the sum of $1 with 3 conditions." "What conditions?" Travis asked warily. "First, you agree to share any proceeds from media appearances or book deals equally with my Foundation for Agricultural Education. Second, you provide regular updates on Thunder's health and behavior for a research study I'm funding on bovine intelligence. And third," he paused, "you establish some form of public access where others can learn from Thunder's story." Travis stared at him, stunned. "You're serious?" "Entirely," Blackwood replied. "Sometimes, Mr. Johnson, even a businessman recognizes when something transcends business." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" As they shook hands, Travis felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. The burden of past mistakes, the fear for his son's emotional well-being, the uncertainty of Thunder's fate. All resolved in a simple handshake. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Wyatt will be overjoyed." "There's paperwork to complete, of course," Blackwood added, ever the businessman. "But as far as I'm concerned, as of this moment, Thunder belongs to your family." As Travis left to share the news with Sarah and Wyatt, he passed the veterinary treatment area. Through the observation window, he could see Thunder, still connected to various machines but noticeably more alert. His great head lifted slightly as if sensing the change in his circumstances. "You're coming home with us, big guy," Travis murmured, though he knew the bull couldn't hear him through the glass. "Just as soon as you're well enough." In that moment, as morning sunlight finally broke through the clouds outside, casting golden rays through the hospital windows, Travis Johnson understood something profound about redemption. It wasn't a single act or a simple apology. It was a journey, much like Thunder's journey across the southwestern wilderness, marked by determination, sacrifice, and ultimately the courage to begin again. 1 year later, the Johnson family ranch looked markedly different from the modest property Travis and Sarah had purchased when they first moved back to Mason County. A new sign hung at the entrance, "Thunder's Haven," hand-carved by Travis himself during the long winter evenings. The original 5-acre homestead had expanded to include 10 additional acres donated by Hank Miller, who had decided that retirement suited him better than ranching. The centerpiece of the property was a specially designed barn and paddock, where Thunder now resided in comfort befitting his status as the miracle bull of Mason County. His recovery had been slow but steady. 3 weeks in the hospital, followed by months of careful rehabilitation at home. The massive bull would always bear the scars of his extraordinary journey, both externally and internally. His right kidney function remained compromised, and the deep gashes on his flank had healed into raised white lines against his silver coat. But his eyes were bright and alert. His movements, while sometimes stiff, remained powerful and deliberate. "Daddy, the school bus is coming!" Wyatt called, racing across the yard, now 5 years old and bursting with the energy of a child who had become something of a local celebrity. Travis emerged from the workshop where he'd been putting finishing touches on informational signs for the sanctuary's walking trail. "Got your presentation ready, buddy?" Wyatt nodded eagerly, clutching a folder decorated with hand-drawn pictures of Thunder. "Miss Peterson helped me practice yesterday. I'm going to tell Thunder's whole story, from when he was little all the way to now." "Including the hard parts?" Travis asked gently. They had decided early on that Thunder's story would be told honestly, including Travis's past mistakes and subsequent redemption. "Uh-huh," Wyatt confirmed solemnly. "Ray says the hard parts are what make the good parts so special." Ray Jenkins had become a fixture at Thunder's Haven, visiting 3 times a week to check on Thunder's health and to help educate visitors about animal intelligence and welfare. At 79, he had found an unexpected second career as the sanctuary's resident expert and storyteller. The yellow school bus appeared on the horizon, kicking up dust along the country road. Today's visitors would be 3rd graders from Mason County Elementary, Wyatt's classmates, coming for a special presentation about the bull that had made national headlines. "Better go get Thunder ready," Travis suggested with a smile. "You know how he likes to look his best for visitors." Wyatt dashed off toward the paddock, his small boots raising puffs of Texas dust. Travis watched him go, marveling at the resilience of children. The trauma of being lost, of nearly dying in the wilderness, had faded for Wyatt, replaced by pride in his special friendship with Thunder and his role as the bull's official translator. Sarah emerged from the house, clipboard in hand. Tour group from Austin called to reschedule for next Thursday instead of Friday, and that documentary crew from National Geographic confirmed for the end of the month. "We're going to need more parking space if this keeps up," Travis noted, slipping his arm around his wife's waist. "Hank said we could use his lower field for overflow," Sarah replied, leaning against him. "Have you seen the latest?" She handed him a tablet open to the Mason County Chronicle's website. The headline read, "Thunder's Haven Sanctuary receives national recognition for animal welfare programs." The small sanctuary established by the Johnson family following the miraculous rescue of their son by a Brahman bull has been recognized by the American Humane Association for its innovative programs in animal therapy and education, Travis read aloud. Thunder's Haven has hosted over 5,000 visitors in its first year of operation and has established partnerships with 3 universities studying animal cognition and emotional intelligence. "Not bad for a family who knew nothing about running a sanctuary a year ago," Sarah observed with a smile. The transformation of their lives had been as remarkable as Thunder's journey. What had begun as a simple cattle ranch had evolved into a sanctuary and educational center, funded initially by Richard Blackwood's foundation and sustained by donations, modest admission fees, and yes, the proceeds from a book deal currently in the works. More meaningful than the financial changes, however, were the personal ones. Travis, once defined by his past mistakes, had become known for his passionate advocacy for animal welfare. Sarah had discovered a talent for educational program development, creating curricula for visiting school groups. And Wyatt, well, Wyatt had blossomed into a confident, compassionate child who moved through the world with the absolute certainty that animals understood far more than most people realized. The school bus pulled up to the designated parking area, and 20 excited third graders spilled out, followed by their teacher and 2 parent chaperones. "Welcome to Thunder's Haven," Wyatt called out, having positioned himself strategically at the entrance path. Beside him stood Ray Jenkins, his weathered face creased in a smile beneath his ever-present Stetson. "Remember, single file on the trail," Ms. Peterson instructed the children, "and listen carefully to Wyatt and Mr. Jenkins. They're the experts on thunder." As the children formed a somewhat wobbly line, Travis and Sarah exchanged amused glances. The idea of their 5-year-old son as an expert still took some getting used to. "First, we're going to the special paddock where Thunder lives," Wyatt announced importantly, leading the way down the packed earth path. "You have to be quiet and calm because even though Thunder is really brave, he still gets nervous around lots of people sometimes." The children followed, their usual exuberance tempered by the solemnity of Wyatt's instructions. Ray brought up the rear, exchanging pleasantries with Miss Peterson. "How's our hero doing today?" the teacher asked quietly. "Strong as ever," Ray replied. "Just checked his vitals this morning. That bull's got more lives than a barnyard cat." The paddock came into view, a spacious enclosure with a covered shelter, fresh water flowing through a natural-looking trough, and several sturdy scratching posts positioned strategically around the perimeter. And there, standing majestically in the morning sunlight, was Thunder. At 5 years old, the Brahman bull had reached his full impressive size, standing nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder, his distinctive hump adding to his imposing silhouette. His silver-white coat gleamed like polished metal, and the distinctive star-shaped marking on his left ear stood out in sharp contrast. But it was his eyes that caught and held attention, dark, intelligent, and somehow knowing. "Wow," breathed one small boy at the front of the line. "He's huge." "He weighs almost 2,000 pounds, Wyatt informed them proudly. "That's as much as a car. But he's really gentle if he knows you're not going to hurt him." The children pressed against the fence, their faces alight with wonder. Thunder surveyed them calmly, then focused on Wyatt, who had slipped through a small gate designed for his use only. "Hi, Thunder," Wyatt said, approaching the massive bull with the easy confidence born of absolute trust. "These are my friends from school. They came to hear your story." Thunder lowered his great head, allowing Wyatt to stroke the broad space between his eyes, their customary greeting. Then, to the delight of the watching children, the bull carefully nudged the boy's pocket. "He knows I have carrots," Wyatt explained with a giggle, producing the treat from his pocket. "He can smell them from really far away." As Thunder delicately accepted the offering, Ray began the educational portion of the visit, explaining the natural behaviors of Brahman cattle, their origins, and their adaptations to hot climates. The children listened with varying degrees of attention, but all eyes remained fixed on the remarkable bull and his small human companion. "Now, the most special thing about Thunder isn't just that he's big or strong," Ray continued. "It's that he did something most people thought was impossible. Who remembers what that was?" "He saved Wyatt," several children chorused. "That's right," Ray confirmed. "But not just that. He traveled over 100 miles, crossing from New Mexico into Texas to find Wyatt when he was lost. And nobody taught him to do that. He decided all on his own." "How did he know where to find him?" a girl with pigtails asked skeptically. "That's a mighty good question," Ray acknowledged. "And the truth is, we don't know for certain. Scientists who study animal behavior think it might have been Wyatt's scent, or perhaps some kind of connection we don't fully understand yet. My grandpa says animals are smarter than people give them credit for," offered a freckled boy near the back. "Your grandpa sounds like a wise man," Ray said with a nod. "And that's one of the most important things we've learned from Thunder, that animals have feelings and intelligence that we're just beginning to understand." Wyatt, who had been whispering to Thunder throughout this exchange, now turned to the group. "Thunder wants to show you something really cool. Ms. Peterson, can 3 kids come in if they promise to be super quiet and follow all the rules?" After ensuring that proper waivers had been signed, a necessity in the modern world even for miracles, Miss Peterson selected 3 children who had demonstrated particularly good behavior. Under Ray's careful supervision, they were allowed to enter the paddock, where Wyatt instructed them to stand perfectly still. "Hold out your hand flat like this," he demonstrated, "and don't move." Thunder, who had been watching the proceedings with apparent interest, approached the children slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. One by one, he gently sniffed each child's outstretched hand, then allowed them to touch his broad forehead. "He's warm," exclaimed a wide-eyed girl, "and his fur is rougher than it looks." "He says you smell like apple juice," Wyatt informed her solemnly, causing the adults to hide smiles behind their hands. After the demonstration, the children were led to an outdoor classroom area where Wyatt, with occasional help from Ray, presented Thunder's story from beginning to end. He spoke of the bull's early life on Hank Miller's ranch, his special friendship with Wyatt, his sale to New Mexico, and his remarkable journey home. With the unfiltered honesty of childhood, he explained how his father had once been unkind to Thunder, but had changed and made amends. "And that's why Thunder's story is so important," Wyatt concluded, "because it shows that even if bad things happen, you can still choose to be brave and kind. Thunder could have been mad at humans forever, but instead, he saved me. And my dad could have stayed feeling guilty forever. But instead, he made Thunder's haven so everyone could learn about how special animals are." From the back of the gathering, Travis watched his son with a mixture of pride and humility. The simple wisdom in Wyatt's words struck deeper than any adult lecture could have. Choose to be brave and kind. Despite everything, despite past wrongs, despite all logical reasons not to, choose courage and compassion. The rest of the school visit passed in a blur of activities. The children made enrichment toys for the sanctuary's other rescued animals, planted native wildflowers along the butterfly trail, and enjoyed a picnic lunch under the sprawling oak trees. By early afternoon, they were loading back onto the bus, chattering excitedly about their experiences. "Thank you for having us," Mrs. Peterson said, shaking hands with Travis and Sarah. "I think the children learned more today than they would have from a month of classroom lessons." "Wyatt's the real teacher," Travis replied with a smile. "We're just the support staff." As the bus pulled away, Travis found Wyatt sitting on the top rail of Thunder's paddock fence, the massive bull standing contentedly beside him. The sight still took Travis's breath away sometimes, the tiny figure of his son alongside the enormous animal that had defied all odds to save him. "You did great today, buddy," Travis said, approaching slowly. Even after a year, he maintained a respectful caution around Thunder. Their relationship had improved dramatically, but there remained an understanding between man and bull, a memory of past wrongs, acknowledged but not forgotten. "Thunder liked it too," Wyatt replied. "He likes when I tell his story, especially the part where he fought off the mountain lion." Travis smiled. "Well, he was pretty heroic." "Dad?" Wyatt's voice took on the thoughtful tone that often preceded his most profound observations. "Remember when you told me that sometimes people do bad things because they're hurting inside?" "I remember," Travis said carefully. "I think Thunder understands that," Wyatt continued, his small hand resting on the bull's broad forehead. "That's why he isn't mad at you anymore. He knows you were hurting back then, and now you're not. Travis swallowed against the sudden tightness in his throat. That's pretty wise thinking, son. It's not me, Wyatt said with a shrug. Kim, it's what Thunder thinks. He tells me stuff sometimes in my head. Rather than dismiss this as childish imagination, Travis simply nodded. After everything they'd experienced, who was he to say what was or wasn't possible between his son and this extraordinary animal? That evening, as the Texas sun sank toward the horizon in a blaze of orange and gold, an elderly visitor made his way slowly up the path to Thunder's paddock. Raymond Jenkins had brought his granddaughter visiting from Chicago to see the famous bull. "Is that him, Grandpa?" the girl asked, pointing to where Thunder stood silhouetted against the sunset. "That's him, Amy," Ray confirmed. "The miracle bull of Mason County." Travis, who had been closing up the visitor center, spotted them and came over. "Evening, Ray. This must be Amy. Wyatt's been excited about meeting you." The girl, about 12, smiled shyly. "Grandpa's told me all about Thunder." "Is it true he walked 100 miles to find a little boy?" "Every word," Travis assured her. "In fact, why don't you ask Wyatt? He's giving Thunder his evening carrots." They walked to the paddock, where Wyatt was indeed feeding Thunder his favorite treats through the fence. The bull accepted each offering with gentle delicacy, his massive head lowered to the child's level. "Wyatt, this is Amy, Ray's granddaughter." Travis introduced them. "She's visiting from Chicago." "Hi," Wyatt greeted her brightly. "Do you want to give Thunder a carrot? He really likes meeting new people." After proper instructions and safety reminders, Amy offered a carrot to Thunder, giggling as his rough tongue brushed her palm. "He's so gentle for being so big." "Size ain't got nothing to do with gentleness," Ray observed. "It's what's in the heart that matters." As the children chatted and Thunder enjoyed his treats, Travis and Ray moved a few steps away, looking out over the sanctuary that had grown from tragedy and redemption. "Never would have pictured this a year ago," Travis said quietly. "My son nearly lost. Me confronting the worst of my past. A bull traveling across state lines. And now this." He gestured to the sanctuary around them. "Life has a way of taking the most tangled knots and weaving them into something beautiful," Ray replied, "if you give it time and don't fight the pattern too much." "You know, Richard Blackwood called yesterday," Travis mentioned. "The research study on bovine intelligence is being published next month. Thunder's case is the centerpiece." "Not surprised," Ray said with a nod. "That bull's changing how people think about animals. Changing how they treat them too, which is even more important." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the children with Thunder. Then Ray spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom earned through decades of observing life in all its forms. "Ain't no fence been built that can keep out true love," he said softly. "My granddaddy used to say that. Always thought he was talking about young couples sneaking out to meet each other. Now, I reckon he might have meant something deeper." Travis nodded, understanding perfectly. No fence, not state lines, not species differences, not past mistakes, not even the boundaries between life and death, could truly separate those with a genuine bond. Thunder had proven that by finding Wyatt against impossible odds, Travis himself had proven it by finding redemption when he least deserved it. As darkness fell over Thunder's haven, the Johnson family headed home to their farmhouse, leaving Thunder contentedly munching hay in his paddock. The first stars appeared in the velvet sky, the same stars that had witnessed a massive silver bull making his determined way across the southwestern wilderness, guided by nothing but the scent of a child who had shown him kindness. In Mason County, people would tell this story for generations to come. The miracle bull who crossed state lines to save a child, the sanctuary born from second chances, the reminder that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes not from human intelligence, but from the simple, profound truth of a connection that transcends all barriers. And in a small bedroom in the Johnson farmhouse, Wyatt Johnson would fall asleep with his stuffed dinosaur tucked under one arm, secure in the knowledge that just across the yard, Thunder kept watch, his protector, his friend, his miracle, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary love comes from the most unexpected sources. In today's world, where we often feel disconnected, Thunder's story reminds us that love knows no boundaries. Remember when life was simpler, when a handshake meant something, and when we recognized the souls in all living creatures? This extraordinary bull who traveled 100 miles to save a child speaks to the wisdom our generation has always known, that the most profound connections transcend logic, that redemption is always possible, and that second chances can create miracles. Like many of you who've weathered life's storms and emerged stronger, Thunder chose kindness over bitterness, courage over fear. His journey mirrors our own, carrying the scars of the past while still opening our hearts to tomorrow's possibilities. As Ray Jenkins wisely observed, "Ain't no fence been built that can keep out true love." When was the last time an animal touched your heart in a way that changed you? Have you ever witnessed a connection between a child and animal that seemed almost magical? Share your stories below, because every time we remember these moments of connection, we keep the miracle alive. Leave a comment and let us know how Thunder's journey touched your heart.